Well, it looks better, but what a friggin' piece of junk. Welcome back to Built by Bo. So today what we're doing is we finally got our bump steer kit from RaceCraft. I'll put the part number in the description. As you can see from the previous video, I'll put a picture up above. The bump steer was ridiculous on this after putting the RaceCraft suspension and stuff in, so we needed to get this spacer kit. You can space it up to about 1.25 inches depending on how bad your bump steer is, and I'll show you how bad mine is, and we'll get this put in. This kit is for like a 95 style Mustang, like a suspension I have, with 13-inch control arms. So depending on what control arms you have is depending on what tie rod that you're gonna get from RaceCraft. Okay, so here we have my front hood molding. I wrecked it in the previous video. And I bought one from CJ Pony Parts, and it's made by Corvex. Don't buy one, they're a piece of junk. In any case, that's what I ordered and that's what I have, and we're gonna get it put on so the car actually has a molding, and I'm gonna keep my eye open for a factory replacement one. Now this molding is such a piece of junk that I'm gonna have to tighten this side up that lines up first, and then I'm gonna have to tweak this side as I tighten it up, because right now it fits like crap. So once you got this side all lined up the best you can, now you can manipulate this side as you tighten it up. It's proving to not be as easy as it should be. Well, it looks better, but what a friggin' piece of junk. Don't ever buy a Corvex molding, they're junk. Just stay with a good brand or OEM. Okay, so this angle right here up to the spindle is what's causing bump steer. The suspension is unloaded right now, so it's only got a slight incline going up, but with the suspension loaded, it goes up on a huge angle, which is definitely not good. So what we're going to do is remove this tie rod end. We're going to drill this out with a 5/8 drill bit to match our 5/8 bolt that comes with the kit. Now, the proper way would probably to take it to a machine shop and have them like put it on the machine and drill it out real sturdy. Like if you've got a good hand, then you can drill it out with a nice clean drill bit and just make sure that you're straight and make sure that you got everything locked down in place really well. If you don't, if you get it all wobbly and stuff, then it's going to make the hole slightly bigger than 5/8, and then you're going to have some slop in there, which is going to ruin the spindle. So once you drill the hole, this is going to end up being spaced out like this. So it's going to drop the tie rod down 1.25 inches, which is going to eliminate a ton of the bump steer. Now, whether or not you remember on the last video when we were on the road test, I did hear a little bit of a clunk coming from manhole covers and stuff like that. So I wanted to get this apart when I did the bump steer kit and see if I could figure out what it was. Now, as I'm inspecting in here, I've got it, obviously the suspension unloaded, but I can actually wiggle this spring and cause the clunk. So I believe the bearing plate maybe is not all the way into the bushing, but I'm going to unbolt this when I'm doing the kit here and just inspect what's causing that. And we will eliminate that. In any case, let's get this thing apart and get this stuff installed. Okay, so I got the strut out, and what I'm after is that clunk that we heard on the road test. So if I wiggle my top mount, there's play here. So just take my bearing cap off to have a look. It's actually at play in this hole and on the original shock shaft. So the original shock shaft is too small, it looks like, but the supplied bushings that come with it, if I move it up into this supplied bushing, the play goes away. So the next step is to put this bushing in here, or find the appropriate bushing in this place so I can move the spring up into it, which will eliminate the play it has. But then I still have to get the cap back on and make sure that I have enough space that I'm not touching my camber caster plates underneath. So I'm going to play with these bushings, and then we'll get on to the bump steer kit. So at this point, we're going to leave the tie rod jam nut in place. I'm going to undo the tie rod, and then I'm going to leave the tie rod here. When I install the new tie rod for the bump steer kit, I'm just going to use this tie rod as a length reference, because obviously it's not the same size. So that'll get us close, and then after we get it back installed, then we'll do another tape measure alignment. Okay, so now would be the time, as you're almost all apart, to take the spindles right off if you're taking them to a machine shop and getting them drilled out. Or you can drill them out yourself. The proper way would probably be to take it to a machine shop because it'll be absolutely perfect. If you're going to do it yourself, like I probably will, then just make sure that you jig it up good enough that you have a steady hand to drill it out so you don't oblong the hole. All right, so I chose to do it on the car, and it was quite difficult. It was really hard to hold it straight. It was snagging and stuff like that. It definitely would be cleaner to come off the car and jigged up in a drill press if possible, or need a larger drill press, but that would be the best way. Fortunately, when I put my bolt through, I still have a really snug fit, so I'm safe. So I'm happy with that. Next, you're going to grab your tie rod. Now, there is a left and a right. There is an adjustment sleeve. And this is what I mean about the different length in the tie rods of stock versus aftermarket. At that point, if you've got the right side, and this should thread on perfectly, which it does. Now, both ends are threaded here, so you're going to want to give yourself a little bit of leeway on both so you can just turn this nut to adjust rather than having to take it off each time. So I'm going to loosen this jam nut. I'm going to pull this away from the threads a little bit, which I'll show you in a sec. I'm going to line up my spacers as per the diagram. I'll put it up above, and we'll get this thing back together. So as you can see, you have your adjustment sleeve and you have a bunch of threads here. So I'm going to take it into about halfway. That way I've left myself a little bit of threads to make some adjustments if needed. And then by rights, I'm getting closer to the length of the original tie rod at this time. And then now I'm going to thread it onto the car. And then I'm going to take another measurement. So I think I've run into a little bit of a snag. I think the tie rod end is too short to go all the way up into this sleeve. So I'm just going to check into that. And the reason I know that is because I was threading it on all nicey nice, and then I got friction. So and it doesn't want to tighten up anymore. So I'm just going to have to make a measurement here, and I might have to trim my tie rod, my inner tie rod down a little bit. Okay, so when I was looking down inside the sleeve, the threads only go to just to the adjustment part of the sleeve here. And as you can see by the tie rod here, that leaves us about ½ an inch to cut. So I'm going to trim ½ an inch off this inner tie rod, and then we're going to try again. And we got a ½ an inch cut off that. We'll thread her back on. And we're golden. So now I'm not going to thread it all the way into the jam nut because this was still a little bit shorter than the factory one. So what I'm going to do is line up and actually stick that tie rod in the hole. And I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'm basically going to adjust it accordingly here to make it around the same length as this factory one. That'll make my adjustments for that alignment a little bit easier with the tape measure. I'm going to tighten it up there for my trial. Now before I button it up any further, I'm just going to grab some anti-seize and get it on this inner tie rod so I don't have problems in the future for adjusting. Okay, so now you got your tie rod ends all anti-seized up. We can go ahead and start the reinstall. Now for the bolt going through the tie rod and the spindle, they want it to actually come up from the bottom, which is going to put the threads into the spindle shaft. And I don't want the threads in there. They could cut at, well, they just could cut at the metal a little bit, and it doesn't fit as nice as the actual chamfer of the bolt here. So I'm actually going to go backwards on my own accord. I think that would be better. So bolt goes down through, nice fit. Then from there we're going to put our spacers on. Then our tie rod end. Then it gets another small spacer, the washer, and the nut. Now, as you can see, my line here is a lot better. And probably still going to have a little bit of bump steer once we get the weight of the vehicle on, but I'm going to get the strut back in, and then I'll tighten this all back up and we'll have a look. All right, so we're all buttoned up now. You just turn this adjustment for your in and you're out. Now up above here, I've removed one spacer from on top of the strut, which has brought me closer to the camber caster plate, which is not really what I wanted, but I needed it to ride inside here, so the spring was sitting on it, and now when I jiggle it back and forth, I have no clunky. I'd love to have this spaced down further from the plate, because on certain turning suspension, they could bump into here, but I don't have enough thread left on the strut, so that's how it has to be for now. So I'll get the other side done, and then we'll see what the alignment's like and the ride height. All right, so we're all buttoned up on both sides. We've got the weight on the vehicle, and as you can see now with the weight on the vehicle, the amount of bump steer is way less. It still has some, but it's way less. So I'm pretty happy. I mean, I don't know how much more you can actually go, but I did my first measurement and I'm 58 inches in the front and 56.5 in the back. So I'm just going to do a little steering adjustment and do another measurement. Okay, so both tires look like they have about the same amount of toe out, and I have the steering wheel straight. So what adjustment I make to one side, I'm gonna make it equal to the other side so I can keep it just coming in equal. So after a test drive, if it's pulling to one side of the steering wheel is not quite straight, then you can make your adjustments after that. But right now, I'm just gonna do equal changes. $57 1/8 and 57 1/8 on the back. Now I want a little bit of toe end, maybe 1/4 inch. So I'm going to do one more turn on each side and button it up for now. What I'm looking for is probably about 57. I'm going to leave it at that. "26 inches on the left, 25.5 on the right, so I'm going to have to pick up the right side a little bit, but not too bad once the weight's on it. Went for my road test, and steering wheel is actually fluked out again. It's actually almost dead straight. It drives straight, it doesn't pull. I came back after the road test and everything. All the weight's been on the vehicle now. It's kind of settled. And I was 3/4 of an inch towed in. So I've made a slight adjustment inboard and got it around the 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch kind of towed in mark. And I'm going to drive it like that for a bit, and then I'm going to recheck it. So right now I'm really happy with it. The clunk is also gone. So with putting that spacer in on the top of the strut, switching the spots, that fixed the clunk over Manhill. So I'm really happy with it. So that's it. We're gonna drive this thing now, and we'll be on to the standalone fuel injection system very, very soon. So thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like the videos. Drop a comment if you want, and I'll see you on the next one.